One of the coolest things about modern smartphones is that they're almost all capable of taking professional quality photos. Creating amazing images has never been more accessible, and because I'm such a big proponent of mobile photography, I wanted to show all my fellow photo enthusiasts exactly how I create gallery-worthy images right from my iPhone SE. So let's get into it. First things first, let's talk hardware. My iPhone of choice, and by that I mean the iPhone that I can afford, is the iPhone SE 2nd generation. Now this one is quite a bit weaker in terms of processing power and camera compared to models like the iPhone 13 or Pro Max and all that, but it is quite functional, and it's only $250 from Walmart compared to about $1,000 for whatever the latest iPhone is. Despite the massive price difference though, this iPhone is quite functional, so let's talk tech specs real quick. This phone has a single rear camera unit with a 12 megapixel sensor, 28mm lens, and a fixed aperture of 1.8. I don't know what the ISO range is on this guy, but I don't really care because it's not that important to me. And it also has some features like portrait mode and panoramic mode that I use only very occasionally. Now the default camera app that comes on an iPhone is perfectly serviceable, but around 2018 I discovered this really cool app called Halide, and I think it's something you should definitely check out. To summarize, Halide offers iPhone shooter much more control over their photography experience compared to the default camera app that Apple gives you. Because of this control, Halide is a little bit more involved, so I usually open Halide when I'm out and about taking photos, and if there's something I just want to capture in a pinch, I'll use the default camera app. But aside from that, I use Halide 90% of the time for my photos on my phone, so let's dive in and see what makes Halide so great. As I mentioned, the best thing about Halide is all the different controls that it offers you, and there is so much that I'm just going to focus on a few that I find really important, and those are manual controls for ISO, shutter, and focus, luminance histograms, gyro assist to ensure you get level photos, and most importantly, RAW plus JPEG support. For my photography, I really like starting with the basics and then building up to a finished image, and all of these tools promote that. Shutter speed controls gets me the right amount of motion blur, histograms make sure my exposure is somewhat balanced, gyro assist helps me keep cropping and post to a minimum, and shooting RAW lets me freely play around with the white balance and colors in Lightroom. Now let's be clear, all this control definitely comes with a price. I'm considered an early supporter because I started using this app way back in 2018, and I think I bought it for $10 at the time. If new users want to buy this app outright, I believe you have to pay $50, which is definitely a big price tag compared to most apps on the App Store. But knowing what I know now, even at $50, this app still offers you a lot for the price. It's worth noting that the workflow that I'm describing here will work with the default camera app, but then you won't have access to raw photos, and to me, that is a huge deal when it comes to editing. Now, there is plenty of other third-party apps on the App Store that allow your iPhone to shoot raw images, but I just haven't used them and have really enjoyed my experience with Halide. Now, with all this in mind, it's time to hit the streets and shoot a little bit. Alright, hold up, cut the sexy B-roll clip. The photos that I took in the financial district sucked, so I got some other ones in Central Park. I'm going to be editing that instead, but let's get into the editing portion of this workflow. Alright, so I tried a bunch of different things for this section, including 2 failed edits, but instead of showing you guys the actual editing process, I'm going to show you a before and after and then kind of talk you through what I did instead of trying to show you how I'm editing in real time, because that wasn't working. Obviously, you can tell right away that these 2 edits have completely different vibes to them. One is much more summery, and one has that kind of golden fall Portra Kodak look to it. So I made some minor adjustments to the exposure, have some boost in the shadows, a little bit in the whites, drop the blacks and the highlights a little bit, and then up the contrast just a little bit. Now I didn't touch the exposure too much, but most of the changes that you see really come over into effect in the colors tab, specifically in this mix section. Orange boosted the saturation a little bit, boosted the luminance quite a bit. Yellow turned that more from yellow to orange, boosted saturation and the luminance. And the green is where obviously most of the adjustment is made, as you can tell from the before and after. I dropped the hue to make the green much more yellow, boosted the saturation, and dropped the luminance a bit. And I'll show you what that does here. I feel like it gives the detail in those leaves back there a little more emphasis. Other colors, not really present in this photo, so I didn't adjust them. Next panel, we have the texture, clarity, dehaze, and vignette sliders. I usually don't play around with these too much because I feel like they can make the image look really crispy and distorted in a bad way. So I just added a little bit of clarity, and that's it. Detail sharpening is up a little bit. I think this might have been done automatically by the Halide app, but I don't know. And that's it. And that's how we go from this to this. So this part is a little bit overstated because I don't always print my photos. I don't want to print most of them. And my $2,000 shoebox apartment here in the city can't fit all of them anyways. But I do want to make a point that iPhones are absolutely capable of taking gorgeous looking pictures once printed, so I got 3 prints here to show you guys. So here I have 3 printed images, 2 of them shot on the Sony a7 II and 1 shot on the iPhone SE. Now if you guys think you can determine which one was shot on the iPhone SE, go drop a comment down below and let me know why you think that. I'm curious to see what you guys think. And the one that I shot on the iPhone SE is this one. This picture of Yosemite Falls. Alright, now this is a 9x12 photo, which is relatively small, but the really cool thing about shooting mobile, again, is that you can actually print these images really, really big. I looked it up online, but I believe you can print up to like 3 feet at the widest side before having any issues with pixelation or anything like that. And that is incredible. That means I could get something like that from my phone, which is just insane considering how accessible it is and that this $250 phone can do it. That's amazing. And generally speaking, if you don't know how good it feels to print out your work in some way or another, you should definitely try it because it feels amazing. So with my image printed and everything, that wraps up my mobile photography workflow. One of my favorite things about photography as of late has been practicing the medium through different tools. So if you're a photographer who likes shooting with mirrorless cameras, your phone, or even film, be sure to check out some of my other content and join me in exploring the different pockets that photography has. With that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one real soon.